For this episode, we want to highlight Hi-Fi Cookies. Sean and his team use inspiration from childhood treats and a love of music to make distinct cookies and milkshakes. You can find their cookies at their East Nashville and Donaldson locations. Follow them on Instagram at Hi-Fi Cookies. Welcome to another episode of the Nashville Dads. This week we have on owner of Safe House Tattoo, Ian White. We talk about tattoos, kindergarten during the pandemic, a lot about Sigur Ros, therapy and recovery, and addiction. We hope you enjoy. So, all right. Justin is not on this episode because he went and saw Mark Broussard's in Knoxville. So he texted me yesterday and was like, "What time is the interview at?" And I was like, 2. And he was like, "Can it be 7?" And I was like, "Nah, my wife is flying out for work at 8." And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "Dude, enjoy the concert, man.
Yeah.
We'll see you later." So
we'll just have the best time ever.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ian, thanks
not
for coming
because
on.
he's gone. not
as
that.
a reaction to the fact
Yes.
that he's not here. But
I
just
bring
like,
the fun. That's what I'm trying
that's
to say.
what it is.
Yeah.
So Ian, welcome to
Thank
Nashville
you.
Dads Podcast.
Stoked to be here.
Appreciate you coming on. So Ian, I asked you to come on the podcast because I've gotten tattoos at Safe House before from Eli, a guy who you know very well.
Yep.
And I remember Eli telling me that you also have a daughter named Magnolia.
Yes.
And do you also call her Noli as a nickname?
Yep. We
Yes.
do. I thought I was so creative. I had never heard that before.
What?
And I even told my family before she was born, I'm going to call her Noli.
Yeah.
It just popped in my head.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're all going to call her Maggie.
No, can't do
I was
Maggie
like,
because
she's
Maggie
not
means
Maggie.
Margaret. It doesn't mean
Oh,
Magnolia.
yeah, see?
So,
Yeah. And then it very quickly just became her name.
yeah.
So
How old is your daughter?
she's 8. She'll be 9 in July.
Okay, cool. My daughter's 6, so you did it before I did. So you're
That's
cooler
all
than
right.
me. That's why.
Dude, you wouldn't believe. I'm surprised how many I've met.
It is. I blame Joanne Gaines. And
Maybe, yeah.
That's probably
it. Even subconsciously. I don't watch any of her, but I obviously know who she is.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Because you shop at Target because you have a wife and kids, so you end
Yeah.
up at Target on Saturdays.
Well, with my daughter, it was mostly through my wife's from Mississippi and sort of by way of Louisiana,
Yeah.
and it's the state flower for both.
Yep.
So
Yes, it is.
yeah,
So
I have nothing to do with that. It was, but when we got married, that was like the one thing that we were like,
it was a
yeah,
guarantee.
we can figure out all the rest of the names,
That's awesome.
but Magnolia is going to be our first.
And do you have a son also? Do you have
I
2
do.
kids? Awesome.
Yeah, Milo. He's 6.
Milo?
Yeah.
Cool.
That one was just like, we could not think of, we had Milo and that was it. We were like, let's try some other ones. We were just nothing. We had like 10 girl names. Could not think of boy names.
So I have 2 daughters and then a son,
Yeah.
and girl names are much more fun to come up with than boy names.
I think so. I had some creative ones for my son and
Yeah.
it met a lot of resistance in my family. It would,
Yeah. Well, I feel like girl names are like cute and sweet, but like
Yeah.
for a boy's name, like my name is Devin with an O. And I feel like, I have to like explain it to people of like, it's actually not
Yeah.
Devon, it's Devin.
yes.
And it just leads to a lot of more questions than answers whenever
Yeah.
I'm the one who shows up when they say Devon. So,
Yeah. I was shooting for Olin.
oh, okay.
Olin. I'd just seen it in this cool documentary about these wooden boat builder guys. And one guy like hollers at his son. Was like, Olin, come here. And I was just like, that's my son's name.
That's it.
I don't know what it was about it. I just thought it was cool.
See,
But-
I've read so many like nerdy books, right? I more grew up on like Lord of the Rings than Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So in my head is all of the really dumb dwarven and elf names.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, "What's a good boy's name?" I'm like, "Can't say that one. You're not going to accept it. Can't say that one." You're gonna,
But we'll know people that will know.
it's true. Or like, how many people have named their daughter Arya after Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Well, that, and I find especially here, it's like flowers. Every kid is a
Yeah.
flower, which is beautiful. It's a
Yep.
beautiful trend.
Yep.
I like the names I hear.
Yep.
But you hear my daughter running around with their Girl Scout troop and they're just like, lilac. And
It's a garden
that's not
bed.
a real one,
It's a
but
garden
it's a
bed.
total garden bed.
Which I can't really diss on that because my oldest daughter's name is Holly. My middle daughter's name is Magnolia.
Yeah.
And my son's name is Joshua. So we went
Yes.
full
You
plant
went
names.
full, yeah.
And my wife's name is Heather, which is also a plant.
Yeah.
So
Mine's
know.
just great for St. Patty's Day, which we're recording. But
Yes.
Ian is just,
It is
White
pretty
is not my blood last name.
Oh, really?
My blood last name would be McClintock.
Oh.
So it's, my dad changed his last name when he was adopted by his stepdad.
Fascinating.
Just a respect thing for his stepdad.
Yeah.
But I would have otherwise been Ian McClintock.
That's pretty
So,
Irish.
Yeah. And in my other side of the family, is McGlashan.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh.
it's pretty.
That's like
Yeah,
it's
Mick
like
through
you
and
did
through, yeah.
like Mad Lib Irish words.
It really
basically.
was. Yeah. I mean, I have shamrocks tattooed on my
You
hands.
do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, thanks for choosing St. Patrick's Day.
It really,
record the
it was a good
episode,
accident. Yeah.
I mean, this might be the biggest holiday of your year, so thanks for spending it with me.
I think it is. Yeah. Although I quit drinking almost 20 years ago,
Oh, did
so
you
I
really?
stopped really caring about it all that much.
Yeah. It's I think it's really cool how many I don't drink that much. It's more because I don't really get a buzz. I just get tired.
Yeah.
And so it's like I have a beer, then I'm like, well, if I have another one, I just get more sleepy, so I don't understand it. I feel like a lot more being sober is a much more like socially acceptable thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've noticed in the past couple of years, people I feel like people went way too hard during COVID of drinking all the time, and now suddenly people are like, maybe sobriety is a good thing for me.
Yeah, I've found a lot of people that are just they're grabbing onto that, like, what are they, dry January or whatever.
Yeah.
I just call it January. But a lot of people grabbed onto that and kind of had a little bit of like oh, this kind of feels good.
Yeah.
And it cost me a lot less.
Yeah.
So good for them. I
Yep.
like it. Sobriety gave me my life.
Did it really?
So yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's I kind of joke. It's like the world was just a better place without me drinking in it.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I came up. I also kid that I never really came up with any like gentleman drinkers.
Yeah.
I did all my hard drinking and all that at an early age, and in an industry where everybody was just partying. Nobody was sitting around like talking about what kind of beer they got or anything. It was just like, so you got 4 of them, right?
Yeah.
At a time. There was never any of that. So I never really, could have been a whole different life.
Yeah, of course.
if I had been a different route, but it wasn't. So it isn't.
Nope.
And
No, I
I'm happy
remember.
with that.
I mean, this thing 20 years ago. I mean, yeah, were craft beers even like a thing?
No, I kind of snobbishly thought I knew a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Like I tried to, be a cool guy. I'm like, oh, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I know what this, while I'm
Of
sitting in
course.
Dayton, Ohio,
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to be like, no, guys, let's get some Guinness over here.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was talking about.
No.
But we had that kind of thing close to where I grew up, and I knew people that were into that.
Okay.
But I just, you had to like drive to another city to kind of engage in that kind of world.
Yep.
So it was like, why bother?
Pretty much. Whereas nowadays, I feel like craft beers almost become like the identity of neighborhoods nowadays.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in South Nashville. I'm close to Black Abbey. I'm like, cool, Belgian whites. That's what I associate with South Nashville because of Black Abbey.
Yeah, I mean, it's our own sort of different. I mean, not just our city, but a lot of cities. But it's like, you have your neighborhood church, you have your neighborhood brewery, you have your neighborhood barber, your neighborhood tattoo shop. Yeah.
Yep.
Which it's cool.
Yeah.
It's thankfully a lot of them have good food, so I can still go hang out at them because
that is true.
Yeah. I mean, East Beer Works, we talk about that. We've seen each other there, and some of my favorite pizza, and they got the kombuchas with the Walker Brothers stuff there.
I love Walker
so I can go
Brothers.
there and have a great time.
Yeah.
And I'm not like,
You're not the guy at the bar being like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't have any alcohol tonight. Or anything
Right,
like that.
right,
There's still
right.
a lot. I think Justin doesn't drink either, and he does he's a fan of THC infused stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm still stressed as hell for my job every day. I would still like something to make me more mentally present.
Yeah.
Because without a drink, the hope of alcohol, I think, is you have a drink, you're more mentally present, and all of the buzz kind of dumbs down a little bit or gets replaced with a different type of buzz. The problem is that it's really hard to know where the line is of just drinking and drinking and drinking.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, it's been so long for me that there was just never really a line. So it was easy for me to be like, there's either going to do this or don't. Let's go with don't.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a genuinely interesting thing about getting older is there some things you run into where all right, if I open this door, I don't become a good person.
Yeah.
I should probably just go ahead and keep this door closed.
Yeah.
Because I would like to keep my family and friends.
Yes. Yeah. And even that with growing older, I mean, you find different things. Like I'm like to think I'm in a pretty physically healthy stage of my life. Like I'm working on those things. I'm exercising regularly. I'm trying to eat pretty decently.
Yeah.
And then I'm 46 now. I'll be 47 soon.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have 3 cups of coffee instead of 2, my body's like, you shouldn't have done that. And it's like, what? I used to be able to drink 6 of these.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
And I have to like be careful of like, okay, tattoo wise, do I have to outline anything today? I'm like, I gotta stop drinking coffee. At
Yeah, because of like how jittery your hand would get.
Oh
More. Man.
And it used to be I could just cram these things down. And
Probably smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee while tattooing at the same time.
Yeah, back in the day, yeah, it was. I mean, I used to be a heavy smoker too.
Seriously,
and I had to quit for that reason.
Yep.
And now I have to be very aware of like how, and even I go into the shop and I've been there for a bit and people start walking in and my staff starts walking in, my coworkers, and all of a sudden I'm like, I promise I'm not on cocaine. Like I've been standing in here by myself drinking my 3rd cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And now I have all these ideas. And then somebody walks in and I was like, oh, I've been waiting to tell you this thing I've been thinking about. And it's, oh my gosh.
You're a waterfall. And there's like, hey man, can I set down my bag?
Yeah,
first?
exactly. I have to like watch, especially my shop manager, that poor guy.
Really?
Because I'll just be like, Johnny, you're here. Let me tell you about these things I was thinking about.
And he's like, can I go pee first? Because I know it's going to take you 20 minutes.
Yeah. And really, he's probably like, so all these ideas that you need me to accomplish is what he's kind of getting at.
You're actually giving him a to-do list.
Yeah.
How long have you been, do you consider yourself a tattoo artist? Is that the correct like term for it and everything?
I never, people,
Cool.
there's like entire religions based on if there were tattooers or tattoo artists.
Okay.
It's whatever. You can call you tattoo guy, dude that tattoos.
Ian the tattoo guy.
I'll answer to all of it and not be offended.
Cool.
But I like to just, I would say my default would be just that I'm a tattooer.
Okay.
And I forget, was there a question on the beginning of that?
I think there was.
Was it how long?
No, I was going to lead into, but
Gotcha.
I started to call you tattoo artist. And then I realized like I should probably ask if you identify as a tattoo artist before.
No, it's whatever it needs.
Cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been tattooing for?
This is my 21st year.
Nice.
Yeah. Professional. So not including my apprenticeship. So this is my 21st year professionally.
So I know nothing about like what the career path for a tattoo person is. Do you do an apprenticeship for a while and then graduate to being a tattooer?
Yeah. The most general approach to it is a fairly what we would call a traditional apprenticeship, which is still a pretty broad stroke statement. Most places that's a year-long process of basically being an unpaid intern.
Yeah.
Some places it's longer. I've heard of people having 2 and even upward of 3-year apprenticeships. That's obviously very difficult for some people to accomplish with like trying to pay your bills and do all those things. Yeah. I was fortunate that I had a bar job before it, so I could work all day, 6 days, 7 days a week. Actually, for a while, it was 7 days a week. And then at night, leave the tattoo shop, go over to the bar, make my living, come back and just rinse and repeat for a year.
Yeah.
But it's that's the traditional way. Some states require tattoo schools. Tennessee does not.
I didn't know tattoo schools existed.
They do. They're kind of crock of crap.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure what kind of language I can use.
You can use whatever language you want, and I will put an explicit thing on it.
There you go.
As long as you feel comfortable talking, that's what I care about.
Some states like Oregon actually requires a certain amount of tattoo school, like you would like a hair school or something.
Okay.
But Tennessee, we do apprenticeship.
Okay.
Yep.
Man, I whenever I started getting tattoos, I feel like from talking to Eli about it.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you're basically a graphic designer, and the medium you work in is skin. And I feel like once I realized that, I was like, this is a really interesting way to look at tattoos, is because you create designs and then you just tattoo it in someone's flesh. Yeah.
I've had different sort of iterations of my own mental thoughts of like what it is we like. Even this morning I was thinking of it almost like as a performance art. It's like it's like you bought the album and then I have to perform it for you.
Kind of, yeah.
You get the design and now we're gonna go through the act of putting it on. Not too many other art forms where the person you're doing it for is sitting in hands on for however long it takes to do it.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty much. graphic designers on skin.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the longest tattoo session I've ever done is like 2.5 or 3 hours or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how people, like even you as a tattooer, like how do you actually keep your stamina for longer than that? Because that seems exhausting.
It is exhausting. Mine has waned a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
I max out at about 4 hours now.
That's still intense focus.
It is, and it's pretty draining. And
Yeah.
some of it I actually had to do partially because like if I do mostly pretty large work. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of times that it would be like, okay, we're going to go 6 or 7 hours today.
Yeah.
And some people sit great and they just sit there and you're like, I don't know what sort of trauma you had as a child, but you are dealing with no pain.
You were clearly abused in some way that I have a lot of questions about.
And I would be very focused. And then in the end, we'd get done and I would go home and I was just a zombie.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
was just not, I think lack of presence wasn't even the right term. I was a zombie. It wasn't like I was checked out. I was just not alive
pretty much,
moment, you know? So that was the first sort of iteration of toning it down. And then I realized I was developing arthritis and carpal tunnel and things like that and honing that in a little bit more. And funny enough, I thought a lot of the people were going to be like, no, I want to knock this out faster. Let's do longer sessions.
Yeah.
And nobody's complained. I'm
That's
like,
good.
yeah, I'll only do 4 hours. And they're like, thank God, you know, so it's worked out. I work really fast too.
Dude,
so
okay, cool.
Yeah. I don't really know why I do faster than the next person, but I'm
probably all the coffee.
quite great. It might be part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you do, because I feel like, would you do like a full back basically? Would that be like a normal like design for you? Or whenever you say bigger things, do you mean like,
like
what do you
a
mean by that?
back or sleeves or stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have like three backs in progress right now,
That's
full backs,
insane.
and then 2 or 3 sleeves in progress right now. And yeah.
God, I have like naturally shaky hands, even whenever I'm like cutting up like dinner sometimes. I'm like, that was really bad knife work because my hand just like shook as I was pushing the knife down. Do you feel like you should have been a surgeon instead of a tattoo artist?
Oh no, definitely not. I'm actually like a lot of times, even besides the coffee, I'm usually hoping they're not paying attention to what my hand looks like.
Oh,
when
really?
I start. But the second my hand like makes contact, it's like everything. I plant, I base,
Okay.
you know, and I'm in it.
You get like your posture or whatever it is. For
Yeah,
it.
I get everything kind of squared away, and sometimes it takes like a couple lines.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, we're on track, but I just try to make sure that whatever the first line is, I'm not like, it's not something detrimental.
You can have some forgiveness to the first line or two. Yeah.
Whoever I tattooed last, I don't listen to that part.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
How did you end up? Do you own Safe House? Or are you just like the lead person for Safe House?
I own it. Yeah.
Okay,
cool. Myself and my wife. My
Okay,
wife
cool.
does a lot in the back end of it. So, cool. In full fairness and transparency, she's a big part of that. But yes, we own it together.
That's been a really cool thing about this podcast, talking to like Ben from Creefall Bagel and a lot of other small business owners where the husband is kind of like the outward facing part of it, is learning how much like every man is like, I wouldn't be able to do this unless my wife was taking care of like payroll, admin and all this other stuff. Like if you think I do all of that, that's no. Go talk to my wife. She'll tell you.
We joke around of like, I'm the trophy wife. Like I am the face of the business,
yes.
and I get to.
You're the main.
I get to dance around and be like, "Look what I made!"
Yes,
and my wife is in the back going like, "Look what I'm doing," and I'm the only one that sees it. But it's very detrimental to, like, I would have to, like, we own the space that we're in.
Yes,
and I don't think we would ever been able to do that without the work that my wife does. So we're in a very unique situation with that, and very grateful for that. And
how long has Safe House existed for?
This year will be 12 years.
Okay.
12 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I got 2 tattoos done there by Eli whenever you guys were in Marathon Village. How long ago did you guys move to the east side?
5 years ago.
Okay.
2019, July of 2019.
Okay.
And then, and then 9 months later, COVID. Yeah. So that was interesting.
It is one of my favorite things is to just realize, like, to talk with everyone about their energy of the end of 2019 versus the end of 2020. Because I feel like beginning of 2020, like, I feel like in that January, I went up and saw like Stephen Colbert. Like my wife and I got tickets to go see Colbert in New York. So we flew out there and did a day trip and stuff. And then like a month later, we're like, was that really stupid to go to New York in January because of this whole pandemic thing?
Oh, yeah.
And like just to realize what chances people were taking at the end of 2019. And then in the middle of 2020, we're like, shit.
Oh, dude, totally.
Like, because I'm sure buying a new space and trying to rent it out and everything, like you can't get more physically close to someone than doing a tattoo.
No, you can't. It was very, I mean, like a lot of businesses, it was very like, oh crap, what's tomorrow look like? And then, you know, the people that were the powers that be, they didn't know what tomorrow looked like. No, so it was like, we kept making guesses. 1 week closed turned into 10 weeks closed. Yeah. So it was.
What'd you do during the pandemic? Did you pivot in any way whenever the pandemic hit?
I paint, and I just sort of manically was painting. We didn't know what kind of assistance we were going to get. Yeah. We didn't know what we would qualify for.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Because you could have applied for all the PPP. And all that stuff.
And so there was stuff that went one way, and my wife would be like up all night doing all the research. And I, unfortunately, was not a ton of help in that. I get just 2 + 2 is 4, but you go much further than that, and my brain just goes inside itself. But she can like tease all that stuff out. So she was trying to figure out what we needed to do, and she really was the stress bearer in that time of like knowing all of our finances and knowing what we had,
if you're going to close or not.
Yeah, really, that was it. Yeah. We thankfully we had a bit of a parachute, but that parachute would have still been really difficult to pull. But I just painted, like we kind of split the day up with the kids. It was like, you know, do you do this half of the day? I'll do this half of the day. We were 2 shifts in the night in the same home. Yeah. I would shut myself in the one room that I made into like a little art studio. Mm-hmm. I would paint. And I was very grateful that a lot people would just buy them up. Like, I think that people really wanted to like help. Yeah. So it was like, here, buy this painting I just made $150. Buy this painting I just made $50.
Would you do that nationally or locally?
Mostly locally.
Cool. That's awesome.
I would still mail them if somebody, you know, I have clients that would drive, you know, to get tattooed and stuff. So it was like, well, I'm not gonna make you drive to Nashville to get this. Yeah.
But mailing a painting is a very different experience than like, hey man, I'm gonna leave it on the front porch.
Right.
Let me know when you're there and I'll drop it off.
Yeah. And that was a little different, especially with oil painting. You gotta like,
oh, you did oil painting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, I finished the painting, but I gotta wait a week for it to dry, and then I gotta wait another few days to varnish it, and then I gotta wait a few more days to then package it. Yeah. But yeah, we painted, and then once we figured out that we were gonna like have some assistance and like the mortgage was gonna get deferred for a bit, then I was able to like sort of sit back and like just help with the kids.
Yeah, of course.
Let my wife do her work. Yeah. And count the days to get started again.
I think it's really hard to. I feel like I think of 2020 a lot of like what's going to be really hard to explain to my kids later, and that frantic energy of no one knowing what comes next. Yeah, and like I'm very lucky because I'm a stay-at-home parent. We only had 2 kids whenever it happened, so like all I knew was like, okay, cool. How do I entertain 2 kids at home while my wife works? How do I make her life easier? And how do I entertain 2 kids? That's all I know. Yeah. And until I'm instructed that anything else opens up, this is all my world is now. Yeah. For the longest time. And I will be fascinated to see what books are written in like 5 years from now about what that year was like, because there was so much anxiety. There was so much like, well, what happens next? I don't know. Do you keep your job this week? Like, someone bought a painting today. What about tomorrow? And I'm going to paint something and cross my fingers. Yep. That's about it.
Well, even then it was like when we were able to open back up, it was like, well, is anybody going to have any money to get a tattoo?
Yeah, that too.
And for whatever reason, maybe because everybody didn't have any money to travel or do anything else. Yeah. We went from closed to being the busiest I've ever seen across the board. Seriously. Industry wide. It was like everybody just wanted tattoos.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of cuckoo how like we couldn't even keep up with it. Yeah. So
how many people tattoo out of Safe House?
Currently, I think we have 10. I think there's 10.
Dang.
I'm trying to remember. I was trying to do the math the other day. Like I've said a couple times on here, I'm terrible at math. Okay. I think currently we have 10 plus me. Okay. So 11. We have a couple people kind of scooting along to do their own thing. Sure. So we'll be down 9 plus me, and then we have an apprentice. So we'll be back to 10 plus me. So
I feel like tattoo, that world seems like almost like all of you are like small business owners basically. And you're just kind of like Safe House is the home base for everyone. It's kind of what it feels like.
That's exactly how it is.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah. We're there, to try to encourage them in whatever they're doing and try to help them along in whatever way we can.
Yeah, of course.
We try not to just be four walls.
Yeah.
But to keep them going without me trying to like stand in there and give a TED talk every day, but yeah, just moving things along and have a lot of social aspects and stuff to it.
Cool.
So,
what do you guys do mostly? Do you do like walk-ins at your space? I feel like in tattoo world, it seems like there's like, I do very intentionally plan tattoos of like, I'll bother Eli for like a month about what design I want, and then I'll come in. And other people are like, they're in town and they're like, I'll get this tattoo today.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is more the spectrum of where you guys land with that?
Way more appointment. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought.
We rarely have the time for a walk-in.
Okay.
Sometimes we do, and we'll just like post it.
Okay.
And usually it'll get filled up. We have some people think ahead. They're like, I'm going to be traveling to Nashville. We want this, cowboy hat with my 4 friends, and
like, cool. We'll get you fit. We'll get you worked in.
Yeah, usually Eli takes them. He takes everything. He's
That's
like,
awesome.
He's my dude. He's like, I don't know, what is it? Yeah, book it. I'll take it. I'll do it. I'll knock it out of the park.
That's awesome.
So,
how old were your kids whenever the pandemic hit?
My daughter was just going into. She started kindergarten in the pandemic, so that was. I guess she'd have been 5.
Yeah.
That was actually she's young for her grade, so I'm trying to think. She might have. Yeah, she would have just turned 5.
Okay.
And then my son would have been 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was. We lucked out. We had a bunch of people we were close with coming out of daycare.
Yeah.
They were all came up in the same classes in daycare, and they were all like, crap, what do we do?
You were all figuring out together.
Yeah, so we ended up creating a pod and rotating which houses we did that remote learning from.
Oh, that's right. Because
we've now all been trauma bonded, and we do like everything together. So it's
that's awesome.
Yeah, we just went camping last weekend together.
That's awesome.
So it's we were fortunate to find each other in that, because I don't know what we'd have done otherwise. I mean, we would have figured it out, just like a lot of families, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was going to ask, like, does that mean your wife, like, while you were in the room painting, was your wife, like, trying to figure out how to get your daughter to sit in front of a screen, basically, and learn kindergarten stuff while also entertain a 2.5-year-old at the same time?
Not at that time.
Okay,
thankfully, at that time, it was just like, let's put on Moana for the 10th time.
Disney Plus came out at a great time.
It really did.
All can agree
Maybe they started the
Maybe
pandemic.
that's it. That's the
New
conspiracy theory we're looking for.
Yeah. No, they up until school started, that was just it. It was like survival. It was just like, let's try to play in the yard when we can.
Yep.
But once school started, I had already realized I didn't need to do the painting part of it, so I would tattoo when I could,
gotcha. Cool.
And we would kind of flip flop. We had the way we rotated. We'd have like 4 kids at my house at one time on certain days.
Okay.
And then the daycare went back in.
Yeah.
So we were able to send my son to daycare, and then my daughter would do the remote learning with her friends.
Which means you could actually focus on it and help.
Yeah, and that was, I'm sure people had different experiences of it. I thought it was going to be like, I'll get them started, and then I'll go sit in this room and I'll work on drawings.
Everyone I know.
I was a waiter
for,
like, I just would stand in the wings and just wait for someone to be like, Garcon, my screen went out.
Basically,
and I'm like, this is what? It was so stressful.
Yep. I'm glad your daycare opened back up, because I know, I'm sure people also where their daycare wouldn't open up, closed or something like that.
Yeah.
So they'd be at home with 3 kids. One kid they'd be trying to basically be a waiter for to help them learn how to read, while their other 2 kids jumped on them the entire time. And they're no, I'm going to shove you in a closet now.
Yeah.
With a computer screen.
Well, the other kids, they were all jumping on each other.
There
still.
you go,
I would look in the room, and one kid's supposed to be because they all had different teachers too. So
did they seriously?
Yeah. So it was it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 2 boys and 2 girls.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
At 5 years old each.
Yeah,
it was like
there's just way too now. I think it was still probably the best case scenario to attempt to do that.
Oh yeah.
But oh my God,
it's like something we had to do something.
You had to do something.
But in hindsight, it's like I don't really know if any of that had any positive forward motion.
Yep.
I think maybe my daughter got cued into like what meditation could be
Oh,
like.
yeah,
Like
there you
she's
go,
like,
yeah.
and now we're all going to breathe together. I'm like, that's cool. I'm going to go
That's
try
cool.
that over here while you guys are doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you feel like I've never actually asked someone on the podcast this. Kindergarten is one of those things where you can kind of idealize what the moment is for your kid, like being able to drop them off at kindergarten for the first time ever. You didn't get that chance.
No.
Do you feel like do you have any thoughts on that? Basically,
I think it's like I didn't know what I didn't know.
yeah.
I didn't really get to sort of flesh that out until like when we took her into first grade.
Yeah.
And it felt like we got to accomplish that. What was difficult was that I didn't realize that my daughter didn't really get to have that.
Yeah,
so
that's
when my
more,
son
yeah.
went to school, because they go to the same school,
Yeah.
it was like a whole to do for
Yeah,
him. And
it
she
is.
was like,
I didn't get
get
that.
this.
Yep.
And I felt bad. I was like, that. I don't know what to do for you.
No.
You can feel your feelings about it, but
And we can talk
you know,
about it. And I
yeah.
can tell you that we did our best, and
yeah.
we'll try to celebrate you going into third grade as best as we
Yeah.
can, but it's not the same.
I kept telling her, I was like, well, when you have kids, you're going to be able to be like, well, when I was your age,
Yeah.
I was in the COVID thing.
Correct. Yes.
And I mean, mine is like, we didn't have the internet, but
True. Yes.
it's, every generation has their thing.
Yep.
And that will be my daughter's one.
That
So,
was a realization my mom had, that whenever, because my daughter is like a year younger, or my oldest is a year younger than your Magnolia.
Yeah.
And so we were the year afterwards. So we were able to drop off in person, but it was all masked and everything.
yeah.
But even that still, my mom was like, wait. So when you dropped your Holly off at school, you didn't get to walk her to her classroom? No, we got to go in a month beforehand and look at the school then. Okay, so do you get to talk to any of the parents? No, we pretty much go through the drive-through line. She goes out and they take care of her. And then we see her, 5 hours later? She's like, oh, normally, just so you know, whenever you guys were in school, we would walk you to your classroom. You talk to parents as you go drop your kid off at the classroom.
Yep.
You say hi to the teacher for a little bit. Then you walk out. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I don't have any of that.
No, we definitely did. And even when my daughter went into first, it was,
Yeah, it's still
it was
different.
like
Yeah.
still kind of masked at that point.
Yep.
And that was its own challenge. Just out, we didn't realize that she was learning to read so much slower.
Yeah.
And, I was, very for the mask, for whatever
Yep.
people were recommending for us. We didn't realize that she was having a hard time learning to read because she couldn't see the teacher's mouth.
Yes.
And the day that they could not have the mask anymore, she started just flourishing.
Immediately improved.
Yeah, immediately improving, which was such a hard, I can't imagine for other, obviously one thing I've learned in life is we're not really all that unique,
Yeah.
So if my daughter had that problem, a lot of other people had
Correct,
that problem,
yes.
if not
Yep.
worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just an unfortunate thing to have had to figure out the hard way
Pretty much,
as a society, let
Yes.
alone just as one person.
That I hope to just offer grace in those areas as much as possible because similar. I feel like I got lucky that Holly was only in kindergarten whenever that happened. But yeah, if she had been in first or second grade, my opinions on it would be a lot different.
Yeah. It was tough. It was. I tried to just sit back and not
Find the pocket.
do what I could.
Yep.
And there was certain stuff I couldn't, and
Yep.
it just wasn't like she was going to never read. It
No,
was
pretty
just
much.
hard when you excited for it. Now she's a voracious reader, which I
Cool.
love. She stays up reading graphic novels.
Does she really? What graphic novels has she read?
She almost specifically is Wings of Fire, Dragon something
Cool.
or other. It's like pretty elaborate stories. I'm pretty impressed by it.
Yeah.
Some of the Training Dragon graphic novels too.
Mhm.
She likes those too. Just anything dragon.
Cool.
Just anything with dragons in
That's
it.
fun.
But she's gone through them. She's starting to read regular chapter books now, and so it's pretty cool to see. I never was that way. I learned to read really early,
Okay.
but I never was like, oh, I love reading.
Okay.
I think I've been able to be articulate, or I've been able to almost write better than I could read.
Mhm.
Never until my 20s.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when I quit drinking, I was like, well, I need something
I
to
have
do
a
with my
lot of
time.
free time
So I was
now.
reading and reading and reading a lot.
Yes.
And I was
You took all your alcohol energy and put it towards voraciously reading.
I
Basically.
did, man. I did. And yeah, I'm just excited for her to be a kid that's super into reading.
My oldest daughter finally started reading Harry Potter.
Yeah.
She's on the 5th book, and it's now where I'm can you please talk about anything besides Harry Potter?
Oh man, say with my daughter.
She's just constantly but did you know that this happens in this book and and I'm I actually could spoil the entire book series for you.
You just have to go,
And
no,
it's
tell me more.
really hard. Do you think Snape is a good guy or bad guy? And I want to be it's actually very complicated. Nope, stop, just stop. But just don't.
My daughter has not gotten into any of the stuff that I'm specifically have knowledge on.
Okay.
So she can't I only know the Harry Potter stuff from the movies.
Yeah.
But like Star Wars, any of that stuff,
Cool.
it'll be like, oh, did you, this
Yeah.
and this and this? And I'm like, why don't we just sit down and watch it? Because I'm going to ruin all of it for you.
Basically, yeah. In my excitement to relate to you, I'm going to ruin this.
Yes. Yeah. Which I've come close. I've
Have
ruined
you
a few
really?
movies for my wife thinking she had seen them.
Oh, no.
She still gives me a hard time, which I won't spoil it on here for anybody who's seen Book of Eli, but I gave like,
okay.
it's so crazy that this, and she was like, what are you
What are you
talking about?
talking
I was
about?
like, I thought we watched that together. She's like, I've never seen that. And it's like a super big spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I'm a really big fan of 6 Feet Under, which is like an early 2000s HBO show about death, and I think it's fantastic. And I think I was talking to my parents who had watched all of it, suggested it to me. I watched it like after college, so like 2010, 2011. And I think I'd finished the 3rd season. My dad gave the spoiler for the 4th season and how it ended, thinking that it was the end of the 3rd season. And he just had that brief moment of being like, forget everything I just said. And the 4th season is a great journey once you start watching it.
Which I don't think I've ever got to that season, actually. So I'm going to, you're not spoiling. You're holding on for me. Yeah, we started that a while back. I'm always a sucker for a good HBO series.
Yeah,
so.
early 2000s HBO is a very fascinating era of HBO.
Rome, that's one that a
lot
of people haven't seen. That was good. Yep. Yeah, Sopranos. I've debated on going back and The Wire.
Yep.
The Wire, what's funny with The Wire is I was a huge Deadwood fan, and they just stopped Deadwood short.
Yeah, like after season 3, it was like, by the way, you're canceled now.
Yeah, and they never finished it. There was not like a finale.
They did like a movie like a couple of years ago,
and that was
but it's
like
not the same. It's like a decade later movie.
Yeah.
It's not the same energy.
But then I finally had read somewhere that that was why they canceled it, was to put all their efforts into The Wire. And I was like, well, this show is that good.
Yeah.
Let me give this, and it was that good. It's really good. Yeah. Idris Elba.
Oh man,
That's
Idris
like
Elba.
everybody's introduction to Idris Elba.
I can't think of what the
I'm not even a
is.
cop. I don't even have families that are cops, and I want to be laid out on a pool table when I die.
Exactly.
Like,
Yes. So.
There would be no reason to do that for me. And my wife, if she listens to this, she is rolling her eyes as I talk about this. But
I think I also discovered like all those shows in like 2010 or so, because whenever they came on, I was like in 8th grade. So like my parents were going to be like, "Hey, do you want to sit down and watch The Sopranos tonight?"
No.
It's not a conversation.
No,
they were going to have with me.
No, I definitely have like my list, and I'm like, okay, when Noli is 13, we can watch The Matrix or something. It's like these different things where I'm like, I love movies.
Do you? Okay.
I love movies and like really well written series. So I could sit and just talk all day long. It's funny. A friend recommended this podcast called The Rewatchables. Have you?
No, I haven't. What's
so
that?
It's really good. It's really just talking about movies that are so good that they are rewatchable. They talk about why they're rewatchable. And they go down this whole gamut of things of like categories, and they have like awards in the end of it and everything. So I'm listening to this one episode on Man on Fire, and I realize I'm driving around listening to this episode, and I can feel all this anxiety drumming up in me, and I'm like, what is this about? Like I've been through a lot of therapy. I'm really good at like trying to like identify where my anxiety
your
is coming
body's
from.
telling you something. You actually listen
my body,
to it.
yeah, exactly.
What's that like?
Oh, dude, it's crazy. I had it on the way here.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But so I'm listening to it, and I think I realized I was like, oh, I'm insanely jealous of these guys.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. I was like, the fact that they figured out this and have made like 200 plus episodes of this.
Just talking about stuff they love.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't listen to this podcast anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what I would want to be doing. And I'd almost rather just like do it, but sometimes it's almost like if you don't put a mic in front of your face, it's like nobody's going to show up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I guess that was a cool episode. I'm not going to watch any more of it, or listen to any more of it.
Are you a very big Denzel Washington fan?
Oh, huge.
Because you just mentioned 2 Denzel Washington.
Oh, yeah. I love Denzel. I like actors who can get away with playing themselves.
Yeah.
Because he's acting. Yeah. Like he's, but like him, Christopher Walken, like even Tom Cruise, like they're not character acting in anything, and we all show up, and we're all like,
"What's he gonna do?
Do it again, man! I'm in."
Yep.
Yeah, I bought the ticket as soon as I saw your name on the thing, man. So yeah, I like him a lot.
Who's your like favorite director?
I mean, that's a tough one.
Okay, If
Tarantino changed how I looked at movies.
What film or movie are you most excited to share with your kids when they get old enough?
They'll have to be a lot older, but True Romance is.
Oh, okay.
It's my favorite movie.
Is that like Ewan McGregor?
No, True Romance is Christian Slater,
Yes,
Patricia
that's
Arquette,
right. Yeah.
Dennis Hopper, Christopher Walken,
Yes.
young Brad Pitt.
Yes.
Even Tony Soprano.
James Gandolfini.
James Gandolfini's in it as a hitman. Like,
okay,
it's a big all-star cast. Tony Scott, but Tarantino wrote it.
Oh, okay.
So he made
late
Reservoir
80s?
Dogs.
Okay,
yeah. So he was able to make Reservoir Dogs by selling the script to True Romance.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's got he didn't over-edit it. It very much sounds like Tarantino wrote it.
Cool.
A lot of lines that you find in other Tarantino movies. So that's like my go-to.
Okay.
But it's also like, I don't think my kids are going to be like, this is great.
No, not at all.
Because it's kind of obscure.
I think Tarantino and bands like Jane's Addiction, where like whenever it was the 80s and they came out, it was like, oh my God, who is this? This is or like the Violent Femmes and the Pixies. Like,
yes.
When they came out, it was like, oh my God, I'm rethinking how I view everything.
Yes.
And now you listen to the Pixies and you're like, cool. Is this a Nirvana cover band?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, it's not.
No.
Like,
no, that's
Doolittle. Just one slight Pixies rant. The album Doolittle has so much range and has so much variety of type of songs that they do in that album.
Yeah,
it's like one of my favorite albums of all time.
I mean, the Pixies is funny because I got into them more later in life.
Okay,
because I just sort of like categorically sort of put them in this thing of like, I don't really know if that's what I'm into.
Yeah,
Jane's Addiction, however, is like. I mean, I've almost like come around to them again recently, and I'll play them in the shop, and people will be like, "Oh, who is this?" Really, and I was like, "Really? You have to ask me that?"
Yeah.
Like, as my old, I'm the next oldest person behind me is like 7 years younger than me in the shop, and they go from there down to like
babies.
The early 20s. Yeah. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, I get mad because I don't feel like they're acknowledging who this band is obviously influenced by.
Yep.
When Turnstile started coming out, and everybody's going like, "Oh, this band's so good," and I initially was just like, "What?" Like nobody's gonna say like, "Oh, this band sounds like Snapcase."
Yeah.
And after a while, I'm like, "Well, Snapcase is really good, and this band's really good." And I listen to tons of bands that sound like other bands. Why am I being such a grump about this?
But it's something you want respect.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'd play Snapcase, and people are like, "Who is this? It sounds like." If you say it sounds like Turnstile, I'm gonna kill you.
Yes.
I'm
that way with like, I'm a big fan of sad music. So like The National, I can't like The National without respecting like Joy Division.
Yeah.
And a lot of those other bands where it's like very low vocals and very droning music. And I'm like, well, there wouldn't be The National without Joy Division. So you have to listen to Joy Division to respect The National, basically.
Yeah, and that's where I'm grateful for like the Pandora radio stuff.
Yeah,
As I've gotten older, I listen to, if I'm honest, I listen to almost entirely classical music nowadays.
Really?
Like classical, or what I would categorize as classical, like movie scores.
Yeah, okay. Do you have a favorite person who scores movies?
That's a good question.
I'm a big fan of Max Richter, who did the Leftovers soundtrack. If you ever watched that show, that
Max Richter's really good. Alex Summers,
okay,
one of my favorites that he did. He did Honey Boy, but he also did Captain Fantastic.
Oh yeah.
If you want to talk about a movie about being a dad?
Yes.
Damn, dude. He did that score, and his Jonesy from Sigur Ros is his partner.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they've done Alex and Jonesy together.
That's right. They have, yes.
But I'd say he's probably my favorite. Trent Reznor is another. Some of his scores are.
Whenever he did the soundtrack for Soul with John Baptiste, I was just like, I never knew that I wanted this combination, but here I am, loving jazz and like electronic ethereal music all in one movie.
There's 2 songs on there that if I just need to like sit in a song for a second, I just have those. They're so incredible.
The Nicholas Britell, who does a lot of the Adam McKay movies and also did Succession. His soundtracks are like almost like operatic and also like hip hop at the same time. It's this very fascinating mixture where I'm just like, I have no idea how you do this, but you're very intelligent. Yeah.
All those, Kjartan Svensson, he is actually an original member of Sigur Ros who left Sigur Ros for a while and is now back in Sigur Ros. His scores are really good, but he hasn't necessarily, like if you look him up on Spotify, it's like scores for like Scandinavian films,
stuff
like
that
art
probably
films.
isn't over here.
No, but it's like there's a lot of operatic stuff. Like when I go, if I'm the first one into the studio, I'll like put on some incense and like put on that, and people walk in and they're like, "What is
Yeah.
God, what's going
I
on
was
in
kind
here?
of like, I'm
Yeah.
having a moment.
Yeah, it
What's
does seem like
your-
you'd find me like crying in the corner drawing or something.
What's your favorite Sigur Ros album? Now that you can
man.
pronounce, now that you can
Yeah,
pronounce
now that
the
I can
title of
pronounce
it.
any of them. I think if I had to have like a just take one to the desert island, maybe the Brackets album.
Yeah, I call it Sausage Links because it's the
Yeah, it does look like that. There's one specific part of like, so their
like first 4 albums are very important to me as well. So
so super huge to me. They kind of switched me over into like I think of them as orchestral because you don't know what he's saying anyway.
Do you know that they're playing here in October with the orchestra?
I already have
cool,
tickets.
making sure.
I already got my tickets. Yeah,
It would be disrespectful to you not to mention that.
Here's going to be a thing where
we're getting into the dad niche music talk now.
We are getting into that, but I will say this is, and my wife's going to like roll her eyes because usually she's like, you're going to fish for this name drop in a minute.
Yes.
So I tattoo George from Sigur Ros.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, the bass player from Sigur Ros. Yeah, and the former drummer I did too.
That's really
I was
cool,
supposed
man.
to tattoo Jonesy, but I had the stencil on him and then he chickened out. But
that's awesome, man.
So I have like that other layered connection to the music.
Cool.
But sort of going back to the favorite album thing, the Brackets one, track 8. Again, that's all. It's just titled track 8.
Yeah, untitled number 8.
Yeah, but they there was one of the tours where they had a finale and they would come out and they would combine track 8 with Festival from the Naked Running People album.
Yeah.
And it was like a 15-minute track and George would just come out and play this one bass line for like 3 minutes straight.
Yeah,
and
it's
all
a
this
fantastic bass line.
That whole thing.
Movement. That's called movement.
Oh my gosh.
It really is.
And I think about that every time I listen to track 8 or listen to Festival on their own. And wish that, like, I'm sure there's a YouTube of them performing that thing. Yeah. I was fortunate to see him 3 times on that. It was like a 2-year tour. So I saw him 3 times on that tour and I would get to see that finale. Yeah. And every time it was like the first time I saw it. I mean, it was like moved me to borderline tears each time. So it's that one. Yeah. That's partially why. Okay. But also like the Naked Running People album, Arbiter was like my introduction to them.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a churchgoer anymore, but it was actually used as this like example in this sermon, this video of them playing that song live at Abbey Road. And I was like, this is what I've been missing this whole time. And I'm not even joking. It was like 3 months later, I was in LA tattooing them.
Seriously?
Yeah. I went from really cool. I get in my own way with music a lot. I get like, oh, this is what everybody likes. I'm not going to listen to that.
Oh, I'm completely that.
And then I end up like, 5 years after everybody's been listening to it, I'm like, have you heard of this band? And they're like, dude, man, come on.
I was that way with Phoebe Bridgers.
Yeah.
Where I was like, because I listen to all this sad stuff. I listen to Bright Eyes. I listen to The National. I listen to all this. And then like a year ago, I was like, all right, I should probably actually listen to Phoebe Bridgers. And I'm like, yes, damn it, they were right this whole time.
And that's one of the things, like going back to the Spotify with the radio thing, is like things like bands like The National, where I was like, I don't really know. I just assume they're not in my thing. And I would play a radio of like Sufjan Stevens, and it's like, who's this band? Oh, this is this band that I know of, and my same friend who introduced me to Sigur Ros actually works for. And I'm like, I haven't met The National or anything like that, but like there's all these connections and stuff that I'm like, man, I've been missing out on all this stuff. And Bon Iver, which that's another, like, I'll name drop for my dude Adam. It was so cool that it happened, and he just Nashville doing Nashville. Yeah, he tattooed a guy that was like a tech for Bon Iver, and they were coming through. Yeah, and it was supposed to be that he just tattooed like some of their dudes, and then he ended up tattooing him. That's awesome. So he got this like experience, and that's one of his favorite musicians. So that's really special. And he picked like one of his pre-drawns, and like, really? So he's like, I want your art. Like, that's really complimentary. Yes, very complimentary, and I'm very stoked for him that he got to have that kind of experience. So it's one of the cool, like, I don't know too many Nashville tattooers that haven't had at least some degree of that with a musician that they like respect. Yeah. It's a pretty neat thing about tattooing in Nashville. It is. What did you, I think it was 2 years ago, Sigur Ros played the Ryman on like Memorial Day weekend, or Memorial Day weekend. I'm assuming you're at that show. I was there. Yeah, I was at that one. The one that went till like 11 at night. Yes. They were the only band where they played an hour and a half set, took a 20-minute break, then came on and played another hour and a half set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've just one Sigur Ros story. Whenever I was a senior in high school, I drove down with friends on Valentine's Day and saw them play at the Ryman. Yes. And they were on tour for TAC at that time, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly.
It's the only one any of us can pronounce.
Augustus Byron, I think, might be the other one that I can butcher.
Oh,
the
yes,
very
yes.
first one. But so whenever they played the Memorial Day show, I was like sitting there in the stand. One of the reasons why their music is so fascinating is I was like sitting there in like the pews and everything, and almost had like a time warp back to like a decade earlier of me sitting in like the same spot, like watching them play their music and being like, how cool is music that like I can almost be transported to like 18-year-old me and being like, oh wow, I remember hearing this song in this exact environment, and just be like, oh, what is time? What what is life? What is this? And I think they have that very awesome ability to be a time machine, be a time capsule, basically. And I don't even know a single word that they're saying.
No, and they strike a chord. I mean, that's why they're so popular. Yep. It's George actually. He had mentioned to me, because I had mentioned that I hadn't moved to Nashville yet.
Yeah.
When it happened. Either like 08 or 09 was that show?
Yeah, it would have been. I think that would have been like 06 or 07.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was not here yet.
Yeah.
And I was just mentioning that because he thought, were you at that one? I was like, no, I didn't even live in Nashville yet. Yeah. He said and I have not been in his home to confirm this, but he said that's the only show poster from one of their shows that he has framed in his house.
Seriously?
Is that Valentine's show.
Yeah.
Did
you live in LA for a while?
No.
Okay.
No.
You just flew out there to some tattoo stuff?
It was a trippy kind of, my buddy was doing merch for them.
Okay.
They saw his sleeve and were like, who's this guy? And they didn't know U.S. geography.
Okay.
He's like, well, he's in Nashville. They're like, how close is that to LA?
It's not.
It's like, it's not. They're like, well, would he fly to LA on this date? And it was pretty quick notice. And I looked at my wife, was like, will we fly to LA? And they were like, yep. And they put us up in this like crazy nice hotel in like West Hollywood.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. Super nice of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they're very, very great. Like they don't act like celebrities.
I wouldn't
they're
think so.
Incredibly gracious people. And they came through Nashville to play Fontanelle.
Yeah.
And it's funny enough, they're incredibly famous, but they don't know a lot of people in the States.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. They at least don't in Nashville.
Yeah. I would imagine New York or LA or like Manhattan or LA, they would have some.
And those ones, it's like trippy because they'll tell me stories. I met Cameron Crowe at their LA show, just random.
Sure.
I was like trying to be like, yeah, Pearl Jam 20 is one of my favorite documentaries ever, you know. Like, I didn't say any of that, but that's all I was thinking.
You've inspired me in ways I don't want to communicate right
now.
How
Exactly.
Are you today?
I just played it real cool. I was like, oh, yeah, I think I've heard of you.
Yeah, I know who you are, I'm pretty sure.
But so anyway, they ended up, when we had the shop at Edge Hill, because they had nothing else to do or nowhere to go, and they had days off here, they just hung out in our shop all day. Are you
serious?
And they were so gracious about it that initially they had given us a guest list, and then George texted me, it was like this long thank you. Like, thank you for hosting us and doing all these things. Because it was an outdoor show, they could make their guest list as long as they wanted. Yeah. So they were just like, send us the names by 5. Anybody is getting in, and they're all VIP.
That's really cool.
And so we were able to just like, there was people just getting tattooed. And we're like, do you like Sigur Ros? They're like, they changed my life. I was like, well, now you're going VIP.
That's
and it was just a really cool thing to be able to do.
And was that like 2012, 2013?
Right around then. We started Safe House in 2012, so my guess would be 2013.
2013, cool.
Yeah. That was probably my favorite show.
I was at that show, and it was the first time I'd ever heard Untitled #1, or the first song on the Brackets album, which is like the most. If I'm like, all right, my brain is too busy, I need a song that stops me in my tracks. Untitled #1 is the song that I put on and just go, all right, I'm just gonna zone out for a little bit and zoom out from whatever problem I think I'm trying to solve right now and listen to this song.
I did that on the way here. Like I mentioned, I had some anxiety before I was coming here, and I was trying to like get it. I was like, it's not about the podcast, and maybe it was a thing of like, I do generally, I miss having a podcast. I couldn't identify if it was like that I was jealous that you guys have a podcast. Like I didn't know what it was. And there's Half Soul. I don't know what the name of the track is. There's like some tree lines and stuff on the album cover. That's why I do the same thing with that track. So I played that on the way here. And I feel like I mulled through it. I was like, I felt good by the time I got here. Yeah. They're a good band for that.
They're a good band.
Yeah.
So you do therapy and stuff. We end up
Yeah.
discussing therapy usually on this podcast.
Yeah. I've done a lot of it. Love
Cool.
to talk about it.
Yeah. What if I can ask, what made you start do therapy if it's not too personal of a question?
No. I like to consider myself a pretty open book.
Yeah.
So I first and foremost, I'm a recovery guy. I'm a 12-step guy. I qualify for numerous programs.
Okay.
AA, OA, SA, like any of those, and then any of the CODA type things too. My codependency eats my breakfast all kinds of times. So that was the initial, like, okay, I got into a 12-step program. Now what? And therapy was like, then, okay, well now therapy along with this is, well, if 12-step is good, 12-step with therapy is 3 times as good.
Yeah. And
so I just dove full force. I was going for a solid year or two, once a week.
Okay.
It was a trippy thing. It was like, I'm not atheist by any means. And I don't like, I enjoy the magic of the unexplained.
Okay.
There's a quote from Maynard from Tool. He's like, he's like, I don't necessarily believe in religion, but if you're an artist and you don't believe in some kind of magic, your art's probably kind of boring.
Yeah.
So I think I categorize myself into that realm.
Cool.
Long story short, I opened my shop up. I opened my private studio in Edge Hill, and then 3 or 4 months later, sort of like bottom fell out, drove me into recovery.
Yeah. And
I realized one of the biggest meeting places in all of Nashville was about 4 blocks down from my shop.
Okay.
So it was like, I couldn't have done that on purpose.
Okay.
Like there's no, like, I'm not saying it was like divinely guided or anything like that, but like
if you wanted regular help in meetings, you walked half a mile.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was, so I was able to do what we, when you first get into a program, they usually recommend like a 90 and 90, like try to get 90 meetings in 90 days.
Okay.
And that was not a problem. I didn't have kids at the time.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that.
Cool.
And even my therapist, I ended up getting it with through that, through recommendations of other guys that were in the program. His was actually just almost across the street here for a while.
Okay.
So I was able to walk to it. And yeah, I dove into it full force. I mean, It felt like I didn't know what was going on with me. Part of why I left Ohio was like, I don't like who I am. I don't know what it is about me that needs to change, but I do feel internal and secretive about whatever it is.
Okay.
And so I just thought, well, if I move, then that fixes it.
Yeah. And
like we talk about it in the rooms, it turns out everywhere you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So
problems follow you a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So especially when you are the problem, the problems between your 2 ears.
Sadly.
So I dove into that. I went to a few intensives that were like, they called it like getting 8 months of therapy in 72 hours.
Yeah.
And I've never cried so much in my life.
Yeah.
And it broke me in ways that needed to be broken.
Of course.
Learned a lot better ways of talking about emotions, and then also just like realizing like, so I have one of the things we kind of learned, like you're only as sick as your secrets. And so somebody knows everything about me.
Okay.
There's nothing unknown about me. With certain people, it's like certain appropriateness.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
you have to have safety. You have to have trust.
Yeah. Safety, trust, being aware of, traumas and things like that.
Yeah.
But like my sponsor in my program, I mean, he knows all about me.
Yeah.
Guys that are walking alongside me, they know just about everything about me. My wife obviously knows, and that alone has been the part that's like just kept me joyful, and sober for as long as I have. So,
congrats on being sober for as long as you have been.
Thank you.
By the way.
Thank you. Yeah.
I do think that it does take a lot of inertia and a lot of choices every single day, basically, to stay sober. And whatever it is that you're struggling with, it takes a lot of intentionality.
It does. I heard somebody share at a meeting once. It was like, because I'm, the programs that I would call home are all, they're anonymous, what they would call anonymous meetings. And when I learned the difference between anonymity and secrecy, the anonymity is actually to protect the room from you.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily always to protect your identity from, being divulged or things like that, which it's still, you feel safe that you can go to a room, you can share anything you want.
Yeah.
And know that nobody's going to share it outside those,
Yeah.
But there's, like, especially my shop was down at Ed Chill. I'd see guys from my meetings all the time.
Yeah,
we wouldn't even give each other a nod.
Mm-hmm.
These are guys that know deep things about me. And to protect each other's anonymity, you just carry on.
Yeah.
Which felt kind of cool. It was like we had Fight Club, but we didn't have to fight each other to get there, But one of the things that same person shared when I was learning about that difference was that, like, if it was all secret, nobody would learn about it.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of felt a bit called to share more of my own story, to sort of demystify needing help.
Yeah.
Needing help, needing sobriety. And for some people, it's not alcohol. So for some people, it's other things. And it's not to say I don't still, codependency and sometimes food is my own thing. I have a pretty good grasp on the food part of it now, but it's because I worked the steps.
Yeah. Cause you did
around
the work.
it. Yeah. Codependency is still one that, I'll think I got a grasp on it, and one shift of the winds and I'm like, okay, I'm off to the races. I gotta slow down. I'm grateful that my wife is a person that works her own program. So we have language, and she's done a lot of therapy herself. We have language that we can use to sort of get to the bottom of it in real time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
No, it does. Yeah,
I'm pretty good at over answering the question.
Good. What's because I feel like isn't a big part of AA choosing a higher power?
Mm-hmm.
If you are with your hinted at relationship with God and higher power and stuff, what have you chosen as a higher power?
Whew, man, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that's not a casual question either.
No. It's I by no means I don't mind talking about it at all.
Yeah.
So when I first got in the program, I did consider myself a Christian.
Okay.
That was where I felt I was at that time. I was both feet in, and at the time that felt like if I were to write it all out in a book, it made sense for me to be able to really dive into the steps because I didn't get tripped up on that step.
Yeah. Which isn't that step 2 or 3?
Step 2 and 3.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to, we get to that part. It's like, who's your higher power? Yeah. And I'm like, got it. Jesus, let's move on to step 4.
Of course.
And now that's a lot more abstract for me.
Cool.
And I have to simplify it because I will overthink it. Because
it's really easy to overthink.
It's easy to overthink, but it's also easy to try to figure out how you're right in your thinking.
Correct.
Or I should say how I'm right in my thinking. I can, especially when I stepped away from Christianity, there was an aspect of whatever I decided to step away from, I had to justify as being the right choice.
Absolutely.
And whoever was making a different choice than me was actually wrong in their choice. And it took me a while to let that go.
Yeah.
And go, everybody is making a choice of their own. And I'm still sort of choosing in a way. Yeah. And actually my choice is to sort of not choose. The connectedness between all people is the best version of God that I've got today.
Yeah.
And that's where I land. If I still pray. Yeah. It looks more like meditation. But I will visualize the connectedness between me and all the people I know and me and all the people I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's a part of my own spiritual process.
Cool.
But it still does trip me up because I will still feel because I don't have something that sort of has a more widely recognized definition of God.
Yeah.
I will think that somehow I've got it wrong. And through a lot of my own trauma work, I realized one of my sort of wound messages was you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And so I have to work backward from that.
Yeah.
And be like, in my opinion, there isn't a right. There is a lens that I see it through. And there's some writers that have helped me in that. Richard Rohr.
Oh, massive Richard Rohr
dude,
fan.
he's
massive
the
Richard
best.
Rohr fan. If I make it through an episode not discussing Richard Rohr, it's kind
of
we
got there.
He's my Sigur Ros.
Yes, he is, man. Well, and he gave me
Falling
permission.
Upward, man. Yeah,
Falling Upward was the one. Falling Upward was the book.
Yep.
Breathing Underwater was my introduction to him.
That's honestly where a lot of my secondhand knowledge of AA comes from is reading Breathing Underwater.
Yeah,
so
it's a fantastic book. I think. I mean, I think there's a reason. Like, I'm also a huge Joseph Campbell fan.
Okay.
So when he talks about like world mythologies and like we're all sort of trying to explain the unexplainable, but through a cultural landscape that we've been upbrought in, and guys like Richard Rohr who will just outright say like, do I believe if I was born in India that I would have somehow become a Christian still?
Yeah.
And he said, no, I don't think that, but the lens that I see it through. Yeah. And I respect him immensely for that, because he does still speak with a very much like he believes in resurrection and all these things. And he talks about why, and also that he could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I respect that a lot.
Which is heresy to most people who have faith, is like, I think Rohr is very willing to admit that, like, from what I've experienced, what I know, what I've read, what I've studied, I spent my entire life dedicated to, I believe this is right. And I'll know when I die if it is or not.
Yeah.
That's it. And also being right isn't even like the correct way to frame it.
Right. And Desmond Tutu's book with the Dalai Lama and like how they interact with each other. That book helped me a lot of like releasing my own angst towards my old faith and grabbing back onto people of that faith who shared a lot. Like my old pastor, Randy at Midtown Fellowship. Yeah. That dude, I owe him so much. Okay. I could get emotional talking about it. Yeah. He in a time in my life where like everything was falling apart, like the bottom had fallen out, didn't know if I was still going to have a marriage, all these different things. And he shared with me, like, you're going to have a lot of people asking a lot of things right now of like, what's next and all these things. And he's like, I'm going to gift you these words. I don't know. Yeah. And give you permission. Yeah. And even when I was going through a bit of my own, like, I didn't know which way was up in my faith. And I had kind of felt like I had sort of founded this like sort of accidental Christian tattoo shop. So all my staff was Christian. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to step away from this, and like all these different things. And I would talk to other people, like sort of like peers in the church, and they're like, oh, if get in there and pray more and go to Bible study and all these different things, and God will show himself to you and all this. And I met with Randy, and he's like, yeah, lean into that, man. Yeah. Like, I respect you for checking it out. And I'm like, you're my on paper, you're supposed to be the guy that's like, nah, man.
Yeah. Here's the rules. Here's how you're outside of the rules.
And he gave me permission too. And like, I still run into him every so often, and I could damn near cry just seeing him, but having that ability to like, it was people like Richard Rohr and Desmond Tutu and people like that I'm like, I'm able to still like hold on to, and like the podcast, Gunger's podcast.
Gunger. I can't think of the name of it, but familiar with it.
Yeah, it's him and Science Mike. They had a great podcast, and that one also was just like, I dig the like skepticism mixed with a sort of firmness at the same time. It's like, I'm going to put my feet here, but I'm going to move around and look. I dug all that. And,
well, I think like Richard Rohr's book, Universal Christ, is like, it feels controversial because he basically is just saying, if you believe in Christ, you believe Christ is in everything that exists. So Christ is in your dog, he's in your air, he's in this plant, he's in literally everything. And like, if you actually believe that, it's an exhausting way to live, because it means you have to view everything differently than how your ego wants to view it, basically. Yeah. You have to stop viewing things as things that you can control or that can control you, and have to learn how to coexist with them and love each other. And you're just like, but I don't want to. No. I want to be right.
Well, yeah, and we live in the South. And
and just in general, dualistic thinking is very like common in America. So
that's where I have to like, 2016 put me into that. It's like, I jumped on that whole bandwagon of sort of even just accidental. It was like, I didn't know I was on the bus until I was like, oh shit, this thing's driving really fast. Yeah. And I was like, the virtue signaling and the like, oh no, I'm on your team.
Yeah.
Like I felt like if I didn't say it out loud, people would wonder if I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just talking down a tunnel.
I'm just trying to express myself. And now I realize I'm not in your tribe anymore. And I just thought we knew each other, but apparently we don't at all.
Oh yeah. Any and all of it. I mean, it's like,
that's for people I agree with and didn't agree with.
Yeah.
So.
And that's one where I've just really had to be like, where am I not listening?
Yeah.
And I'm just shouting. And I had a conversation. My stepdad we and I definitely have very differing political views.
Sure.
But I went home to Oregon to visit him and my mom, and I was like, I know this is going to come up. I'm not going to fight with him. I'm just going to listen. And that's all I kept telling myself.
Yeah.
Like, just listen and ask questions. And not like spicy questions, not questions with like sting on them.
Yeah.
And I did, even though I was like, everything in me was just like, how can you possibly believe these things?
Of course. Yeah.
And his demeanor changed like halfway through the conversation. And in the end, he actually thanked me for listening, because he's like, most of my friends don't share the same, and family don't share the same political views, and they all just try to shut me down as soon as I start talking. And I was like, I have to remember this, because I am very capable. I'll shut people down before I've even met them, and instead of listening. And I'm like, oh, that's not who I want to be.
No, of course not. I think we're all a lot better if we can, to me, like the most consistent definition of Christ is being empathetic and curious and present. And so whenever I'm like, how do we be more Christ-like? It's like, cool. Are you empathetic to the person sitting next to you? Yeah. No. Cool. You're not being like Christ. You want to consider yourself in a Christian world? Then you have to actually be empathetic to the people near you. Yeah. And I'm like, but then I have to not get what I want. Yeah. And I don't want, and I like getting what I want.
Or be uncomfortable.
One of the two. Yeah. And I do believe most of our culture is built around how do I get more comfortable every single day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just as guilty of that.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm bad at it. That's why. More trying to admit it in this moment.
I think that's also why I get so obsessed with like movies and I kind of wish I was a bit more voracious of a reader. I read very slowly.
I do a lot of
audiobooks. Yeah. My wife will just like destroy a book. I'm like, how do you get that through that so fast? And I'm like, I read it like somebody's reading it to me. So it just takes me a really long time.
You should pick out like a book that you and Magnolia both read at the same time and see who reads through it first.
It's probably about the same. It's pretty bad. Yes. But she, so now I listen to the audiobooks at like 1.5 to try to like do that better. But all that to say, like there's shows, and some of it might just be that like our condition wants to feel emotions, so things like when you talked about just being curious, it just immediately brought me back to like Ted Lasso. Man, that's like the best TV show ever to me. And I cried so much watching that show. I could go back and watch clips and cry again. The dartboard scene. Oh my God.
That's like it's like whenever you're listening to a song and like, you're like, when you're in the room writing this script, did you know how good this moment was? Were you guys all just kind of like,
if you could get him on here, dude, oh my gosh. And they come at it seemingly so confidently, and you just wonder, really, I mean, I am very curious, because the show obviously struck a chord with her. I mean, they talked about it at the White House. Yes. I mean, it's like, but that whole series, but then that scene, like that's one of those ones where I hope to like bring back when my kids are older and be like, I need you to understand that, like, how poignant this is. In what it is, and in the story he's telling, and in all the stories he tells through this, he's just living. He is his own parables. Yes, in this whole story, not to like equate him to Jesus, but this aspect of like be curious instead of judgmental. And I mean, that was a thing I thought of recently. I've had to really work on my own. Like, I have to have Instagram for my job, but I hate being on Instagram because it gives me a ton of anxiety. Yep. But I get inspired by a lot of the stuff that I view on there too.
It's a complicated relationship.
It's a very complicated relationship. And I think that was actually the anxiety I was having earlier today. I was only on it for a little bit today, and I was still already like super comparative, but also super irritated because there was like a bunch of macho stuff showed up, and I'm just like, these guys suck. But why am I giving them thoughts?
Yeah, of course.
Space in my head. And
I think that Ted Lasso is the beta male superhero, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Where like I'm a very definite beta male. I have like no alpha in me at all. Yeah. So watching Ted Lasso, I'm like, finally, someone who I can like over idealize because he's basically a beta male who's being a kind, decent person and is successful, which is normally not what's associated with a beta male.
Yeah.
So
I think of myself as like a Roy Kent that wants to be more like Ted.
Yes.
And I think in the end of the show, that's his journey.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
I actually have a Roy Kent jersey.
Do you?
Yeah.
Just one cultural moment that I have to mention to you. We went, my wife and I last year celebrated 10 years of marriage.
Congrats.
And went to London. Thank you. And toured Wembley Stadium. And in Wembley, because there were 2 scenes, I'm pretty sure, that were filmed of Ted Lasso in there.
Yeah.
They have a Jamie Kent jersey hanging in Wembley, signed by like all of the staff.
Dude.
Yes.
Even that dude's journey, man. And like the throwbacks. I mean, if there's one cool thing I saw on Instagram was like these Ted Lasso pages that were pointing out these throwbacks that the show is so creative to not point out.
Yeah.
The like pass me the ball
Pass me the
thing.
ball,
Yeah, right here. And that was like,
that's episode like 2.
yeah. And they brought it back, and it was just like that dude's journey. I mean, the whole thing was just like.
If you want to discuss, like, one thing that I'm glad there's more conversation about, which kind of ties into therapy and parenting, is the discussion of men's maturity and like the journey that comes with it, as opposed to like, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, so I know a lot of people who their dads got jobs at like a factory or something like that, came home, drank beer, and did that for the next 40 years of their life.
Yeah.
And to compare that to like even having a podcast in which you discuss like, hey, what was therapy like this week?
Yeah.
Is a drastically different world that's available.
Yeah. Well, and the availability to, I have to use this term because it was how it was shared with me. Like the reason the term Me Too for the Me Too movement was so poignant.
Yeah.
It was the same reason that somebody pointed out to me previous to the movement starting. In therapy, I had a moment of like, I felt so alone in all the things that happened in my addiction. And I heard somebody share something and I was just like, oh my God, it's so relieving to know that I wasn't the only one that felt that way or had that experience. And you say, yeah, the 2 most healing words a person can hear is me too.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think in that there can be things like this podcast and where somebody might even just like, might already be in therapy, but not know. There's ways to be in therapy, but not be doing therapy.
Yeah. Not do the actual work.
Yeah. Not do the actual work. And then I do believe that there's some people that they don't feel like they don't understand what safety is in therapy. They don't like, even you could have the safest therapist, but if something in your past told you, if I tell them this, they're going to think I'm a piece of shit.
Absolutely.
Or they're going to tell somebody about it and they're going to laugh at me or whatever it might be. But to have that, my experience, somebody knows everything about me, and nobody's ever laughed at me about it.
Yeah.
While, I got picked on a lot as a kid. So I had that, like, if they knew this about me, they'd laugh at me.
Yeah, of course.
And that's where I still struggle with my codependency. But
sure.
I do have a huge gratitude over, because even, teachers learn so much from teaching, like people learn so much from sharing their own experiences. That's a lot of why I enjoy talking about this stuff, because it puts it on the front of my own plate of remembering and having gratitude for, when you have a speaker meeting, they talk about like, share how it was, what happened, where you are now.
Yeah.
And,
cool.
And that's what I get to do when I talk about these things. Yeah. And I don't go into like a deep dive of like how it was, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And then, even though like what happened is still not necessarily fully appropriate outside of my own story with my wife, but how it is now is fantastic. Not that every day is just like I'm jumping over daisies every day on the way. I still deal with all kinds of codependencies and all the different stuff.
I think Jason Isbell has a lyric that is or has a song that's it gets easier, but it gets easy, but it never gets easier.
Oh,
and it's like it's the way to describe.
That's a really great dude.
Like, speaking of someone who discusses addiction in almost like every song he sings.
Yes. What's the one? No, no one said it was easy. Nobody said it'd be quite this hard. I know Willie covers it.
Yeah.
It's a Coldplay song.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can't think of it.
But man, I heard that, like, mind you, when I first got in recovery, I had a big old truck at the time.
Yeah.
And I'd be driving down the road just like ugly crying, listening to any song. It was just like, that's the most meaningful stuff I've ever heard.
And it was in the moment. And in that moment, it was perfect and beautiful and pure.
It was. And because of that, I'm able to like, like there's a Pearl Jam song, Amongst the Waves, that like still gets me every time. Like, to me, that was the part, like, I had this moment of, like, God's the wave.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was, like, listening to the song, and I had
Sure.
this, like, epiphany, you know. And the same with that Willie Nelson cover, you know, just something about how he sings it is just so much more, like, holding on to a life raft, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, damn.
No, that's kind of the beauty of music and art is I feel like I've told Justin this or someone else that one of the reasons why I enjoy good lyricists so much is because you do have feelings, you have emotions, you go through your day basically, and the ability to explain how you felt during it is a really difficult thing to do sometimes.
It is.
And then you can find a musician or an artist and like, yeah, I feel like when I listen to Jason Isbell, he's put words to feelings that I'm like, that's it. That's what I was looking at how to express this entire day, and I had no idea how to do it. And then you just hold on to them dearly for the rest of the time, for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And and I think that's great too. You know, it's like one of the things we try to pass down, or at least I do with, you know, I hope to with my kids. I try to like, hey, this is a song that meant a lot for me that I picked up from my parents. Like, Talking Heads Stop Making Sense was the first cassette that I ever bought.
Yeah.
And I bought it because my parents had it.
Yep.
And I would sit in my room and listen to that all the time. So like now I'm like, hey, let's listen to Talking Heads,
exactly,
you know, and they have things like my son, one of my brother-in-laws is a professional drummer, and he had this just practice drum with like the mesh head on it, so you could hit it like you know, but it wouldn't make all the noise. And he gave it to him. I go in there and he's practicing. He's got Alexa playing Phil Collins, and he's waiting for he's trying to
in the air tonight?
and he's trying to practice playing that. And I was just like, this is the greatest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And my daughter is like, I'm gonna make movies one day. I'm like, oh my God, can we hold on to this, please?
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's like the one way that I hope my kids go to college. If my daughter goes to college because she wants to go to film school, I'll be like, let's do it.
Let's do it.
But
all in.
I'm not a proponent, or I'm sort of an opponent of art school.
Cool.
So that's a tough one where I'm like, okay, which way is this going to go? And I'm unfortunately 10 years ahead of when it's going to happen. I'm already thinking about it.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much all of parenting.
It does. Yeah. It's like, how much is this new dream of yours going to cost?
Basically.
Yeah.
But also, how do I not squash it at the same time?
Oh,
but
yeah.
also,
or smother it.
Yeah.
I have to really watch out of like, you know, I'm like, you guys could take over Safe House someday. And they're like, nah, Dad, I don't think so.
Good.
You know, and there's part of me that doesn't want them to. You know, there's parts of tattooing that are they're just really hard. They're emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
They're codependently difficult, all the different things.
Yeah.
I think that's just being an artist in general, where I think we have some unique things in tattooing that other places don't. Just like other things have unique aspects too.
Yeah.
But so there's part of me that's like, hey, let's do art, but let's do it different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the reality of being artistic is this constant tension of idealism versus reality.
Oh, God.
So could be a whole we'll start a podcast call.
Let's
about
just
that
call
subject.
it idealism versus reality.
Because like even like I'm very happy with how Eli did all my tattoos, but there's like the reality of like the discussion of what tattoo was I going to get? What did he come up with? Once it's on your body, like that was your ideal was in your head. That's reality.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And if you're the artist who added reality to ideal, like you're constantly living in that tension with someone's human body.
Well, and that part of it too, I mean, the codependency is like, like, I don't know too many tattooers that aren't anxious people.
Yeah.
And a big chunk of it that I didn't realize till pretty late in my career was the fact that like, we're going to sit together.
Yeah.
And hang out
for like 4 hours.
Yeah. And like, I may have never met you.
Yeah.
Like I've had clients, thankfully, rarely just spout off about something where I'm just like, oh, I am not in agreement with what where this conversation is going.
I need to shut this down somehow, but also I can't leave this room.
Right. And I'm like halfway done with their tattoo, and like they're allowed to have their opinion. Like if they were to have like spouted something that was like racist or something in the middle of the shop, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I think the tattoo's done.
Yeah.
But
look at that, I'm out of ink.
Yeah, turns out. But there, you know, that side of it is the part that now it used to be like if I didn't feel like I was like creating this whole like let's have a whole conversation about everything in your life and my life and all this stuff, I felt like I was failing somehow, so I'd get really uncomfortable. And now I'm like more like I don't want to talk. Like it's not anything against the person. I'm very fortunate that most of the people I tattoo are very pleasant people.
Yeah.
It's like 99% of them.
Yeah.
And anymore, I'm like borderline. I'm like one step away from putting my own headphones on and just like.
Well, I mean, you've basically from the tattoos I've gotten, like you basically do small talk with someone for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And you hope maybe there's a tangent you can go on because you know you're going to be there for 3 hours.
And sometimes that part of it is you leave with the best part of the day.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it's like you don't know what you miss.
Yeah.
If you missed it.
Unless you ask the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a weird like. I don't know.
It takes energy, takes intentionality.
It does.
And sometimes you don't have it.
It does. Yeah. When I was younger in tattooing and I would see people that tattooed with their headphones on and I would be real judgy. I'm like, oh, that's rude. You know, these people are sitting there with you. And
you're in a room with them.
Now I'm like, I totally get it.
I completely get it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's, yeah. Well, and even the art part of it, you know, you do a tattoo on somebody and I've had tattoos that I've done where I'm like, dude, I nailed this. Like, I'm so stoked. And they go and look at it in the mirror and there's no real reaction. And like, I have to remind myself that they just sat through like 4 hours of me. Like they're just stoked it's over.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they might take them a day to like take in what they just received.
Yep.
But I take it very like, I go home and I'm like looking at the drawing. Like, what did I do something wrong? You know? And then I get an email that's like, you know, hey, I was out of it. I really love this tattoo. And I'm like, oh shit, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, I think 2.5 or 3 hours is the longest time I've been tattooed for. And at the end of that, I'm like, I feel like my nervous system is off. I feel like I'm like everything
is
because it is like I was just slightly I just chose to have pain slightly inflicted on me for the sake of art for like 3 hours. Yeah, and I tried to small talk during it at the same time. And now I'm like, hey man, that's cool.
Well, yeah, and you took a financial like liability in it. Like it's too. Like you know, it's. I think most artists have this experience of like we create art that we can't afford.
Yeah.
It's like, I got my full back done by an artist out in Oregon, and I've purposely not done the math on what it cost me.
I only have like 5 tattoos, and I'm still like, nope, don't think about it. Don't think like, Eli, I'm glad you've earned all that money, but like I should not think about how much I've spent. I'm in the process of lasering more stuff. Are you really?
Just to get new stuff. I don't know what's wrong with me.
All I know so far is that when you do something, Ian, you go all in is what it seems like.
It does seem,
for better and for worse.
Yes, it is. I can't go halfway.
Never half-ass one thing, always full-ass all things.
I full-ass all of the things. It's
a problem.
It is a problem. Either that or I just no-ass it. I'm either... sitting in the back trying to figure out how to get started, or I just am like, this is all I'm going to do. And it used to be like, I was real bad about this is what I'm going to do. And this is now my identity.
Yeah. Yep.
And now it's like, I'm doing this thing right now. This is what I'm currently doing,
pretty much.
Yeah.
So how we end all of our episodes is we ask every guest the same 5 questions.
All right.
So it's not rapid fire. You have a chance to think about it.
Okay.
We kind of started out the episode discussing this a little bit. You have 2 kids. Did you have any backup names for those kids? Did you have anything you almost named those kids?
Well, Magnolia wasn't almost named anything else, but we did with Milo. If Milo would have been a girl, Penelope.
Penelope. Okay.
And then Penny. We had another one in there too, but that was, actually there was before we, Eli's son, Otis.
Yeah.
We liked that name, but they have like a family connection to it.
Okay.
So it was like, both our kids are like super close in age. And we're like, I'm going to tell them that we got a name picked. And they're like, we got a name picked. And it's like, it's Otis. And I think just because of generationally, the only other name that came into our mind was Milo.
Okay.
Because of the dang movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to
and
ask,
we love the name.
That they're Milo and Otis?
I'll play this podcast for my son when he's old enough to be like, Dad, you named me after an animal on a movie that you don't even watch.
Well, at least you weren't named Shadow or Chance or Sassy.
That's true. Yeah. My son could pass for Sassy. But, that was it. We didn't really, cool. Magnolia, no backup.
Yep, that works. Next question. Do you have a favorite TV dad?
Oh, favorite TV dad?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Funny enough, I had a hard time with a lot of the TV dads because they always made them out to be idiots.
Because, almost every TV dad we grew up was an idiot.
Yeah, and mind you, there's times where I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. So I kind of get it. Tim Allen, I just keep coming back
Yeah.
to. My stepdad and I, even though we would like fight with each other all the time, we would connect on watching Home Improvement.
That's fun.
So that's where I kind of go back to.
Yep.
It's the first one that pops in my head.
People have definitely said Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
Next question, least favorite kids show. Like whenever your kids watch it, you're just like, oh my God.
Oh, man. I know I have
off.
any of they watch these like YouTube kids Minecraft things.
I don't get it.
No.
I don't get it.
I don't get it, but I did. And it was on. I had to see if it was your podcast that it was on. It was a different, maybe a dad type themed podcast. I'd seen a YouTube clip of this guy talking about it. He said, I took the time to sit down and watch one of these with my kid.
Yeah.
People watching people play this game.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he realized it was like when he was a kid and it was people watching people play football.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, in the end, we didn't go out in the yard and like figure out how to beat another team. He said, but in the end, my son knew how to build this world.
Gotcha.
He's like, so as annoying as it is, it's actually my kid is picking up. And I watched that with my kids.
Okay.
I've seen them watch it and then execute what they watch.
Gotcha.
But hearing it in the background, I'm like,
Ooh.
oh, you're killing me here. Oh, this is like the worst nails on the chalkboard.
It is the most like that, and like Caillou and Cocomelon are the most consistent
Yeah.
answers, because all of us like, yeah, we all grew up playing video games with our friends. So the concept of like, now watch someone else do it. All of us are like, no, I just want to play the game.
Yeah.
Can I come over
can't
and
even
play the game?
wrap my
Like-
head around. There was like every once in a while I get stuck as like more of an adult,
Yeah.
because we didn't have YouTube as a kid.
No.
But I would be like, I can't get through this part on Call of Duty,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
man.
and you YouTube real quick, like, oh, I missed
Pretty
this
much.
one thing.
Yep.
It was usually like a Tomb Raider type
Yep.
game. They're like, you didn't get the key to put it in the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And now they're just like full blown.
Yep. Or it's like, hey, you're playing Tomb Raider. To get all the achievements unlocked, you have to find all of these bada.
yeah,
then
and you
watch
missed one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you watch the YouTube video in your head, you're mentally like, okay, I think I went to this. But then I've done that with more games than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. I do love playing video games.
Yes. Next question, favorite kids toy? Like whenever your kids play with it, you actually like playing with it also.
Good question. Man, it's a tough one. I mean, art supplies.
Cool.
You know,
works.
that would be
or
my
activity is another realm. You can
Yeah,
do.
we have a big like art cart that we leave
We have
by
an
the
art
kitchen
cart too.
Yeah,
Yes, it opens a lot of worlds.
it does, and I realize my kids approach it very differently.
Yes.
their art teacher loves to tell me about how they differently approach art, and I just love to experience. We have an actual recommend for anybody. They make these waterproof notepads
Yeah.
called Aqua Notes or something. You can get them on Amazon,
Okay.
and it's a waterproof pad of paper. And when you tear them off, just the wetness of it, you can stick it to the wall.
Wait, really?
And we have one in our shower. Originally, I got them for myself.
Yeah.
Because I would be thinking of different stuff and
Cool.
want to write it down. You think of all your ideas in the shower. And
Yes.
so I would do that. I would write all these, I'd be listening to all these audiobooks and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to think of that
Mhm.
and then when our kids started taking showers instead of baths, I still had that in there, and they're
Yeah.
like, can I draw on that? I'm like, oh, okay. And then they will just go to town.
That's cool.
And so highly recommend putting one of those in the shower.
Cool.
Because it's like, you get some primo art. It's
That's
pretty
awesome.
fun. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's still there when you take your next shower. Like, did I draw it? No, it's my kid.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. I haven't drawn on one in ages. Well, I wish they were a little cheaper, but we're like, man, it's worth it. It's
That's
like,
cool.
they get, it's cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Moment of your kid's life you're most excited to be a part of.
Oh man.
Working out the emotions with this one, you know?
Yeah. There's so many.
Yeah.
I don't have a relationship with my dad,
Okay.
at all. So, and I never did.
Okay.
So there's so many things that like, I don't even know what it would have been like to have that. Like, there's not like this is what it was like when this happened with me, with my father. So this is what
Your
it'll
frame
be
of
like.
reference doesn't exist.
A much easier way of putting it.
That
than what I was
sucks, man.
trying- yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's like everything.
Yeah.
I do remember being at one of my wife's college friends' weddings, and the father of the bride danced with the bride,
Yeah.
and it stuck in my brain
Yeah.
of like, at least with my daughter, that's the one. I'm sure I have one with my son. I think just like growing up with a boy,
Yeah.
I have somebody to do that with. and I'm sure there'll be a lot of those with my daughter too. But like that one that sticks out in my head is like that daddy-daughter dance. And you know,
I think I already have all this. I think I have the songs playing for both my daughters.
Yeah.
Whether or not they'll accept that as a song, so I'll find out later.
Yeah. I'll tell my daughter sometimes. They'll be like, "This is the one we're gonna dance to," and then she's like, "Yeah, no, we're not.
No, we're not." And you're like, "Well, in 10 or 15 years from now, whenever you get married," and I say it, then you're like, "Fine, just whatever. I don't care anymore."
Yeah.
Well, here's the opportunity. I also have a complicated relationship with Instagram and promoting stuff on it, needing to promote stuff on it. Do you want to mention your promote whatever you're doing? Do you want to say your Instagram handle, Safe House, anything like that?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is Art by Ian White. My shop is Safe House Tattoo, same as the Instagram. But the big thing I've got going on this year, I'm hosting a pretty big tattoo convention.
Yeah.
In October at the fairgrounds. So the Middle Tennessee Tattoo Expo, you can find that on Instagram too. And Safe House is the main sponsor of it. So you'll be seeing us post a lot on there about it, but that's my big, big project right now. About 200 plus artists.
Oh, that's awesome.
Space, so.
Is that after the Sigur Ros show?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
2 weeks.
2 weeks after. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, I knew it was in October and I was like, oh shit, this better not be.
Oh no, that would have been, you'd be like, all right, I don't know who's filling in for me, but I can't be there for at least this one
night.
And
I'm emceeing the convention too. So I can't miss a second of it.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I got going on.
Ian, thanks so much for your time, man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks again for listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Nashville Dads and to subscribe to us on Apple and Spotify podcast. We record at New Light Podcast Studio and episodes are produced by me, Devin.